Good day, everyone. Meteorologist Mark Molnar here. Thanks for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather Tropical Edition. We're dealing with Tropical Storm Tammy here. This is likely to become Hurricane Tammy as we progress into the weekend here. Bearing down on the central and northern Lesser Antilles Islands here. Going to produce a lot of rainfall for most of the islands here, I can tell you. Lots of rainfall moving in. And then, of course, you add on those hurricane force winds as this thing strengthens as we head into the weekend into early next week. We're going to take a look at the impacts, when this is going to recurve. We're going to take a look at the rest of the tropics, see what's going on. And we also have a major area of low pressure to talk about here along the U.S. East Coast. We're going to see what the impacts are going to be as well as we continue. And lots of activity here into the Eastern Pacific as well. This could actually push some weather up into parts of the plains and a severe weather outbreak and some heavy rain just in time for next week. Let's get into it. Taking a look at our satellite infrared of Tammy, looking much better organized. Here's our Lesser Antilles. This storm is really growing in size and intensity. You can see it has a lot going for it. If we actually get into the 3D view of this, we can take a cross section. You can see, look at those towering cloud tops here. As we continue to go in time, you can see the loop showing much better ventilation all the way around this system. It is looking like a massive system here. Plenty of rainfall. That is going to be one of the big issues as this system approaches the Lesser Antilles. All right, so analyzing the European model here first. Let's take a look at this and I'll show you the GFS. You can see this storm cruising towards the west-northwest initially as we head through Friday morning. You can see where the storm's path is likely to take here, but don't focus on just the point. This is a very large circulation as I showed you on the satellite photo. As you can see, as we head towards 11 p.m. on Friday night, you can see the center moving right over here, approaching landfall in parts of these islands. So, you can zoom in pretty far on some of these. You can see just what areas are going to be affected. Even areas south of here likely to be affected as well by some heavy rain and some gusty winds as well. Now, as this thing strengthens, the surge and high tides and the wave action will increase as well. So that's going to become an issue as we continue in time here. You can see 5 a.m. Saturday morning. Yeah, this thing's really starting to strengthen into a hurricane. It's a slow mover. I hate to say it. Look at this. This is 75 mile per hour winds by 2 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. And as we continue to cruise out here in time, I'm really zoomed in here because I want to show you some of these island chains that are going to be affected. I know some of them are covered up by the precipitation, but as we progress here, you can see finally starting to move away from the islands, but this is not until Sunday night at 11 p.m. And by this point, it's a full-fledged hurricane. Likely wind speed upwards of 80 miles per hour. I would not be surprised. We're going to take a look at the intensity models if this actually overshoots. So could this become a Category 2? It's a stretch, but it's quite possible because wind shear will be decreasing a bit. We'll have less dry air to contend with. I'll show you all that momentarily. As this continues to pinwheel towards the northeast, you can see it does finally start to accelerate. But by this point, the damage will already be done. You can see 85 mile per hour winds as this thing accelerates towards the northeast. You can see what's kind of steering this storm, though. I wanted to zoom out here and show you. We got two areas of high pressure here, one out just south of the Azores, one off the U.S. East Coast here. So it does find that weakness, that trough here. Of course, there's a weakness here because there's a big trough between these two areas of high pressure, and that's helping, like a magnet, draw the storm up towards other low pressure here. So there you have it. Looks like we're getting a recurve here. So once the storm initialized, it looked like the recurve was pretty much going to happen at this point. So as we take a look at the rest of the tropics here, you kind of get to see what's going on here. You see the intertropical convergence zone continuing. We're going to continue to see these tropical waves, spin up. So these individual waves, we're going to continue to watch here because any one of them could develop as we continue to go in time. One thing I want you to note here, look what's going on. This massive amount of tropical moisture continuing to funnel across the Caribbean here as we go out in here in time. And look at this. That just continues pinwheeling all that moisture here towards the Western Caribbean. And look at this big slug of moisture. We're going to be getting a lot of moisture here from the Eastern Pacific. Taking a look at the GFS model here, you can see really showing up a much stronger circulation here. Let me just look at it from a top-down view momentarily. There you go. So look at that. There's the wind field, it is expanding here. As we continue to go in time, you can see what's going to happen with this storm on the GFS. GFS curiously going well north of guidance. It is strengthening it much faster than the European model. I'm not so much, I don't know. I don't think it's going to go that far north and east. Look at this, though. It is developing it looking like a major hurricane almost here. You can start to see an eye forming as we get towards 2 a.m. on Monday morning. Look at that. So yeah, the GFS brings this just to the east of the islands here. You can see if I zoom in just to the east of the northern Lesser Antilles, Leeward Islands here. So this would keep the worst of it to the east. The European model's barreling it right over the islands, but still, this is a very close call even for the GFS. You can see developing this into a major hurricane by early next week. And you continue to see this. Look at that. Yeah, that's a pretty well-defined circulation. Now, if we go to the west here, I wanted to show you how this moisture is going to be feeding up across the Caribbean here into our East Coast storm. You can see it really well. There's that tropical moisture plume, and you can see it's funneling way up across the Caribbean here, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands. Going to continue to see bouts of heavier rain, especially later next week, though. Look at this. You get a little bit of a clearing Sunday and Monday, but look at that. As we head on into next week, we start to see, well, the GFS is kind of not grabbing a hold of any of that. That is quite a bit different here than the European model. Let's just flip back over to the European model here momentarily. Now, back to our European model here. I wanted to show you the first part of the weekend into next week. You can see that tropical moisture plume here. There it is as we continue to go through the 20th, 21st. You can see how it funnels right across the Cayman Islands, right up the U.S. East Coast there to feed our low-pressure system. Now, let's see what the European model does with all that moisture next week. As we get into the, say, Tuesday and Wednesday here, look at that high pressure up there to the north. It's kind of blocking all this tropical moisture to the south, but you can see quite a bit in the way of moisture around the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, Central America here, as we get funneling going on from the eastern Pacific. Look at that. So you're going to be getting quite a bit bouts of rain as we head through later next week as well. It's not until next weekend. Look at the high pressure. It's actually building right over Bermuda, southward across the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea here, where it actually cuts off a lot of that moisture. But look at over here towards Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico. We're going to see a big influx of moisture here. That's just going to be continuing. It's almost like the base of this trough is actually right down here across the eastern and central Caribbean Ocean here. And that's actually going to continue to funnel heavy rains here across the north central and eastern, northeastern Caribbean islands as we go through the end of the month. Thanks to Tropical Tidbits. For this intensity scale model forecast, you can see this likely becoming a Category 1. Could it become a 2? There's more models coming on board, especially as we get, say, here's 3 days out, 72 hours, and we get 4 days out here. You can see between 96 and 120 hours, we get into 4 to 5 days out. We could potentially have a narrow window to achieve Category 2. Now, as we get into the dry air analysis here, this is our system, Tammy. Look at that. The dry air mostly staying away from the system, so I think it has a good chance to intensify. If not into a 1, potentially maybe into a week or 2, especially later on in the weekend and early next week. Look at that. It's finding an exit right between these two high-pressure systems. You see where all this dry air is at. Yeah, this is kind of interesting to see that this system is actually going to continue to strengthen as it heads out across the North Atlantic. It looks like it's going to head right between Newfoundland here and the Azores. So mainly just a problem here to shipping lanes, although I do get a little bit worried. See how it goes just to the east. This might be sliding just to the east of the Azores as we get towards October 27th. Something to keep an eye on there. But look at all this dry air across the Western Caribbean by October 27th. As well as the MDR of the Atlantic. You have to go to the intertropical convergence zone down here to get into some of that moist air. Now, let's take a look at the East Coast. There's that tropical connection here Friday, October 20th, feeding up into our East Coast system into New England. That's what's going to bring us those very heavy rains with that coastal low deep tropical moisture. Look at the moisture plume here. You can track it from the eastern Pacific across the western Caribbean here, all the way up into eastern Canada and New England. And heading towards the eastern Caribbean, look at this. The big story is Tammy. Now look at this. This is interesting. The European model now has the heaviest rain. You can see Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So what's the deal here? The heaviest looks to be the yellowish areas, 100 millimeters, 150 into the orange, darker orange, 200. That's getting upwards of 4 to 8 with locally higher, a foot or more of rain here, 12 to 18 inches of rain. That's a crazy amount of rain. Now, you can see some of the Leeward Islands here, part down through the central Lesser Antilles. You could be approaching 90, maybe 100, 110, 120 millimeters. That would get you up into the 5, 6, 7 inch range. So that's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. Now, watch next week. Puerto Rico over towards Hispaniola. We're going to have to watch because that surge in moisture could put you over 100 millimeters. 4 to 5 inches. Getting into the Western Caribbean here, look at this. So we get an explosion of moisture Friday night and Saturday here across the Cayman Islands, all the way up into parts of Cuba, and that's heading up towards the East Coast. That's about 30 to 50 millimeters, an inch and a half, 2 inches. Now, Jamaica starts to get in on it a little bit Sunday night and Monday, more so as we head towards the middle of next week. Look at this tropical plume. Maybe upwards of an additional 60 to 100 millimeters. That could head us up towards 3 to 4 inches of rainfall, all the way to the eastern Bahamas. Look at Hispaniola over here, especially the Dominican Republic. You could be up towards 100 to 110 millimeters, 4 to 4.5 inches of rain. So for our eastern Pacific outlook here, we're watching another area of development that's likely to develop very shortly here. Here is Hurricane Norma, major Hurricane Norma. 125 with gusts to 155. This will be weakening. That is the good news. But look at that big buzzsaw there. This system's going to be continuing to head towards the north very slowly, weakening to a Category 1 by the time Sunday rolls around. But still, look at this. This is quite a very large circulation. So it's going to clip just ever so slightly southern Baja California. Then it's going to take a very hard right turn here into the Mexican coastline, likely, thankfully, landfalling as a weak tropical storm, and then heading inland as a weak depression. But I want to make note that this storm is actually going to produce quite a bit of rain here, funneling into a frontal boundary across the central and southern plains. So these areas up here, as we get into, say, the 25th, 26th of October, middle to latter part of next week, you can see lots of moisture funneling up through the plains here. You can see some big-time rains here across parts of Texas as well, and I'll be getting into that momentarily here with your synoptic view. Some much-needed rainfall is going to be falling across Texas and Oklahoma, and possibly as far north as Kansas. So if we take a look at the Western Pacific here, we're looking at Tropical Storm Sanba. This system's been really hanging out here across South China, eventually on its way to Vietnam. It will weaken, though, so there won't be too much left of it by we get to the time of the 22nd here. If we take a look at the rest of the Western Pacific, we're actually not looking too bad here. There's not too much to talk about other than some shower activity here in the northern and central Philippines by the time of the 24th and 25th. But even then, the only things we have to really look at that are really eye-catching are these big systems that develop east of Japan. You can see they're going to be affecting our weather in North America because they're going to blow up towards the Alaskan Aleutian Islands into these massive areas of low-pressure systems. And you can see maybe we might have some flare up here towards the 29th, but that's kind of stretching it here. We will look at the intertropical convergence zone kind of reinitializing here towards the end of the month as well. So as we take a look at your future radar here, we're going to be looking into right around after midnight, Thursday night here. Look at this. So we got some big-time showers and storms here coming through Columbus, Cleveland, just around midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., you can see some big gully watchers here all the way down to North Georgia. So this system is going to be combining forces with an East Coast low pressure system here. You can see it start to develop. That's going to be streaming moisture starting in the eastern part of New Jersey. You can see the moisture is on the increase here into parts of the Ohio Valley, the eastern Great Lakes as well. Here's 8 a.m. as you're going off to work and school. You can see here across the region, look at that influx there across the parts of Long Island, here into central Pennsylvania. Still some showery activity here across parts of Ohio as we head towards 2 p.m., 3 p.m. Let me just zoom out just a little bit here. You can see where these lines of convection are going to be lined up. Now, look at down here into parts of the Carolinas. This is in response to our big low-pressure system developing off the coast. So we have two areas of energy. Here's our low holding back here across the Ohio Valley. And as you can see, watch how these two areas just congeal here across parts of the Northeast and New England and parts of the Ohio Valley. Now, you're going to start to see some lake enhanced. This is 8 p.m. on Saturday. Or Friday, I should say. This is Friday the 20th. So you start to get some lake enhanced already behind it here, northeast and around Cleveland here. Line of convection moving through the I-81 corridor area of New York and Pennsylvania. Now, look what starts to happen. 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., we start to get the low pressure initializing here along the coast. So this is Saturday morning, the 21st. You can start to see evidence of that area of low pressure. You can see it's kind of clearing out here across the southeast. But watch what continues to happen here. There is also another low pressure forming up here as well. You can see there's two lows and there's a third low up here in the parts of Quebec. And there's our main low that's quickly becoming our secondary low here. So essentially, we have a lot of energy feeding into this system, but you can see, look at this, 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., Hudson Valley. Now look what's coming in behind it here. You have the Ohio Valley as well. Some more showers kicking in as we get into, there it is. So there's 2 p.m. on Saturday. Look at this. This is quite a sight to behold. So you got some of these pieces of energy pinwheeling around this area of low pressure in eastern Canada. And look at this surge of moisture here into parts of New England. So as we get into the synoptic view for Canada and the United States here, let's take a look. So as we get into the weekend here, yeah, I told you about that area of low pressure here across eastern Canada and the northeastern part of the United States. This is two areas of low pressure, one from the Ohio Valley and southeast Canada, and the other area developing right just south of New York City here. As we continue to go in time, you can see there it is. So we'll just back it up to Saturday here at 8 a.m., the 20th. There's that low pressure system across northern Michigan and southern Canada, and that combines forces as we head throughout the day. You can see lots of rain. Most of it is offshore, but we got lots of rain inland as well, pivoting towards the east here. And as we get into Sunday morning, there's that area of low pressure moving right across Long Island and heading into parts of southeastern New England here. So that system heading into the Gulf of Maine, you can see by 8 p.m. Sunday, lots of wraparound moisture, well even into southern Quebec here and Ontario, all the way up into New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland over here. So you can see high pressure is going to be building in behind it, central Canada, the central part of the United States. So some nice weather, even some kind of tranquil weather out west here as well, even though you have a few areas of low pressures. You can see our big area of low pressure winding up here, right just south of New Brunswick here, heading towards Nova Scotia. 980 millibars, that's a big low, especially after some of these low pressures like these subtropical lows that have headed up out of the Atlantic Ocean. You can see by the 22nd, it's heading up over the Canadian Maritimes. We're still getting wraparound here into parts of the Northeast. Look at this. There's going to be some sort of inverted trough that sets up, so it's not going to let go, very readily here. So we're going to continue to see those clouds, and I guarantee you, too, we're going to be looking at lake effect south of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. So that's going to really affect our weather as well, lake enhanced. Another storm out west here. We're going to wait for what's ever left of Norma out here over the eastern Pacific. Look how we start to get a surge of moisture here across Mexico. You see up here into Canada, across Ontario, there's our next front. It's moving down south here, but an area high pressure here across eastern Canada, eastern North America is keeping things nice. I know you're back to work and school, so that doesn't matter too much, but look at this. Here's the 24th. There's that moisture heading into the southern plains, really bubbling up by the 25th and the 26th. Maybe, yeah, you're going to get some big-time rains here across Texas and Oklahoma as we head towards, say, Thursday the 26th. Now, what's going on out here across Canada? We got an area of low pressure here across Hudson Bay and another area of low pressure here across Western Ontario. High pressure dominating Quebec and another area of low pressure over by the Canadian Maritimes. You can see out west here, it doesn't look too bad. We do have a small system over here into the Pacific Northwest as we continue to scroll along here with our weather. Yeah, this is looking like a big-time severe weather outbreak here. Whatever moisture fed into this system from Hurricane Norma here in the Eastern Pacific is going to be well up into parts of the plains by this time as we get into Friday and into Saturday next week. You can see this high pressure really dominating the East Coast. This is the 27th, by the way, so it is Friday. Are we going to eke out a nice weekend? Well, let's take a look here. Next weekend, I should say. Low pressure here hung up across Quebec. That's going to continue to keep things showery here across Eastern Canada. And look at this. Watch this. Let's see the progression of this system. By the 27th at 8 p.m. next Friday, you can see, yep, rain is already making it into the Ohio Valley. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, look at next Saturday here across the Northeast. It's looking like clouds and rain. But the good news is this frontal boundary looks to be washing out, weakening, high pressure building in quickly behind it with the next system here. Looks like a Colorado low winding up across the plains with much of Canada looking very tranquil. So let's take a look at our liquid equivalent precipitation here. You can see there it is across the Ohio Valley, about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch as we head through Friday into Saturday. But look at there, that wrap-up moisture here around our East Coast low-pressure system, looking anywhere from about 1.5 inches upwards of 3+ inches. Those yellowish areas upwards of 4. Now watch here across the southern plains next week as we get into the 24th, 25th, and 26th. Look at that. That's looking at like 3 to 8 inches of rain here across parts of Texas and then extending northward here. That's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. And look at the Pacific Northwest. Later next week, we're going to be watching storms barreling in as well. Liquid equivalent precipitation here across the Northeast. So there it is, 1/4 to 1/2 an inch Ohio Valley as we get into Friday, Thursday night and Friday. And look at here into the Northeast. This is where you're going to be seeing the big time rain here upwards in these areas in red, 2 to 3, maybe almost 4 inches of rain. This only takes us through Sunday morning, so definitely going to need to keep an eye on this for some flooding concerns around the I-81 corridor of New York, close to 1 inch in some of these areas. But look at eastern Pennsylvania. We're kind of in a hole here. I just wanted to make note. But there's the Hudson Valley, upwards of 3/4 up to 2, maybe 3 inches in the eastern part of the Hudson Valleys.
And here's a quick word from my affiliate. Stay with me here. I've got plenty more weather right after this. I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
Thanks to John here from Campus Drive, Huddersfield University, UK. Take a look at this. Some beautiful fall color, really starting to show its colors here. Look at that. Wow. That's some really nice sight to behold there, John. Nice captures here. You can see getting out there and enjoying it. There's a nice blue sky with some nice puffy clouds there in the background as well. Look at that. Getting out there and enjoying the best of fall. Nice captures there, John. So let's get into your temperature outlook. Always fun to take a look at this time of year, seesawing back and forth. Look at this cooler air. You know, you can see where the cold front is blasting south. You know, your early highs into right around 60 in Cleveland and Akron and Cincinnati. Look at this surge of warm air up here into parts of New York, Pennsylvania, 60s and close to 70 down here into southeastern Pennsylvania. But look at the big warm blast reforming here across the southern plains. kind of being pushed back south, but look at these 90s. I do assure you here in Texas, relief is on the way next week in the form of some very heavy rain. As I told you earlier in the video, look at here across the lakes in the Northeast, 40s and lower 50s. It's just going to be a terrible weekend up here into parts of the Northeast Ohio Valley, anywhere near the lakes as well with that lake-enhanced precipitation. But look at this. As we head towards Monday, we start to see, look what's happening here. Massive warm blast towards the north here, getting back into the 60s and 70s across Ohio, parts of Indiana. And here into the Northeast, look at this. We're actually getting into the 60s, maybe some upper 50s here into parts of northern New York, Vermont, New Hampshire. And then we head into Wednesday here. Look at this. The tables are turning. Massive trough out west here. Look at this furnace ridge blasting to the east here, upwards into the 60s and even to some 70s there into parts of the Ohio Valley. Extended outlook from hometown viewers, Binghamton to Scranton's upper Susquehanna Valley of New York and Pennsylvania. Take a look at this for, Friday, mostly cloudy, chance of showers, especially after 5 p.m., especially Friday night into Saturday, rain and windy conditions, only making it up into the lower to mid-50s Saturday. Into Sunday, showers, especially some wraparound lake-enhanced showers. Just going to be an awful day. Stuck mainly into the 40s, just a raw, chilly. And look at this, Monday. Monday, back to work and school. Sun breaks back out. Maybe a frost Monday night and Tuesday morning, finally bouncing back up into the 60s as we head throughout the week.
As always, thanks for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Take a look at my Facebook page at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Hurricane Northeastern to follow the tropics. And if you want to hop over to my Twitter page, it's at Weather Eastern. It's MeteoMark.com. Thanks for joining me. Question or comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell notification button so you're alerted when a video comes out.